Hello, everybody. It is another Sunday night, and that means, of course, we're here to talk to another great comics creator. I'm really excited for our guest this week. He's worked on some of my favorite books. We're going to bring in comics legend Karl Kesel, who is here to promote the many odd origins of Even Steven. Karl, thanks for coming on. It's great to have you.
Well, it's great to talk to you, Benjamin. Actually, kind of great to meet you, you know?
Yeah. I don't think I've talked with David HAHN, I think, on one show a long time ago. With the artist of Even Steven and Impossible Jones, among a lot of other things, but I don't think we've ever talked, so it's great to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
I was doing a little, I have half the books on my shelf, I think you have your name on them, but I was trying to look up your credits before I went on here, and at the risk of embarrassing you or so flattering, you've done stuff I was a fan of, that I remembered you doing, that I had forgotten. In the meantime, you've done. There's just so much of it. But your latest book, Even Steven, is on Kickstarter now. I want to note that if you are watching this on YouTube, you can go to the show description, scroll right down, and you can get over to Even Steven and click over there and be that next play. But Karl, tell us about Even Steven.
Sure. Even Steven started as a supporting character in my other book that I've been kickstarting, Impossible Jones. But from the very beginning, he was the clear breakout. You know, people were interested in him far beyond any of the other secondary characters. I can't even begin to guess why. But people from the very beginning said, I want to see more of this character, Even Steven. He's the one that catches my attention. And so I listened to him. And we started to do, in each of the Impossible Jones stories, we did little backups featuring him. And I should back up and I'll explain who Even Steven is, or what his shtick is. Even Steven can exactly match any foe he goes up against. So if he goes up against Galactus, he has a power level equal to Galactus. If he goes up against a gangster on the street, he's got the power level of a gangster on the street. Because he believes in the core of his being, with every fiber of his being, he believes that good will always triumph over evil in a fair fight. And so he always makes sure it's a fair fight. It's exactly even, and they fight. And I mean, so far, I guess he's right, I guess, so far.
so well so far.
Yeah, I mean, and he was, it just sounded like a fun idea to throw out there, and people just really responded to it. And then I had to figure out what to do with the character. That was kind of interesting, because I felt a huge part of Even Steven's appeal is his mystery. He doesn't have features on his face. He appears, he disappears, and he's one of those characters that I think if I reveal too much, he will become a lot less interesting, So my first solution to that, it was kind of a stopgap solution, was I introduced a character, Margot Lamond, who is hired by the FBI to look into Even Steven, because they're very worried that they don't know anything about this guy. And she's listed down below there. Who is Even Steven, right? You just went by, but anyways. But what Margot finds out is, when she starts interviewing people, is there's all these different ideas about who Even Steven is and how he came to be and what his powers are. And thus the name of our book, The Many Odd Origins of Even Steven. He's one of those almost like an urban legend sort of guy. And the man on the street has an idea he sure is right. I'm sure Even Steven's an alien from outer space observing the human race. And someone else thinks he's, a fallen angel, and there's no way to verify or void any of these, until in one of the recent stories we did, she meets Even Steven. And now that's kind of where this collection picks up. It'll collect together all of those origins. And then we have 20, maybe 30 pages. I haven't finished writing it yet. That will finish, this story, finish her investigation into Even Steven and what she finds out about him. So
very cool.
And I will also let me add real quickly, because this is when I decided I'd do all these different origins of Even Steven, first of all, I'm not the first person to do this. Mark Waid did this with the Phantom Stranger when Mark Waid edited Secret Origins back at DC Comics. When he said, what is the origin of the Phantom Stranger? Well, once again, a man of mystery. You really shouldn't know what the Phantom Stranger's origin is. And he hired 4 different people to write 4 different origins for the Phantom Stranger. And I just stole that idea. I just stole it for Even Steven. But I called Mark and I said, I'm stealing your idea. And would you like to write one of the origins? And he was a real pal, and he did. But that's what I did is I got Mark Waid to write one of the origins. Gail Simone wrote an origin. Kurt Busiek wrote an origin. Alex Segura wrote an origin. And Lee Wolf, who I'd worked with on the Fantastic Four, and I loved his writing, he wrote an origin. So we have 5 different possible origins, and there might be some truth in all of them, and there might be no truth in any of them. And they're all done by really great cartoonists, really great comic creators. So it's a big
I mean, the talent in this collection is just just a who's who of classic writers. But I love the way you kind of structured it. And I know, I think we've all, like, there's a few Batman and Joker angles where they do kind of that thing. I think that convention's been done a lot, although I didn't know that Mark Waid did it first. But I think that's a good way. I mean, it's a cool idea to, you kind of said right off the bat, you were cognizant of the fact that, like, you want to know more about them, but that would really kill the golden goose in terms of a lot of what the appeal is. And I think that's been true of a lot of things that they said would never get done in comics, like Jean Grey will never come back to life, or Gwen Stacy won't, or Wolverine's origin should never be revealed, and it always is.
Yeah.
Or Bucky will never. I remember reading in the Wizard magazine, it's like there are 2 golden rules: Jason Todd and Bucky Barnes will never come back. That's the only.
Never.
Yeah.
Never say never.
And those characters are cool, but I think that it's hard as a creative person, to say, all right, I have to preserve this part of the core appeal that is based on mystery. I need to give people something that engages that point of interest, but doesn't just end the story, or, okay, I got that now and I'm done. And this sounds like a really cool way to do it. I really do like the, I don't think I'd known that his power set, although I think he was in an issue of Impossible Jones I'd read.
He's been in 2 or 3 of the different stories. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I like I think of Mr. A lot when I look at him, and, Steve Ditko has that really, commitment to fairness in a really, trying to think of a nice way to say it, pretty extreme way.
Very extreme way. Yeah. Yeah.
I
think there is a difference between Mr. A and
sure.
But I don't know where that thought was going. I will say, I'll just let you know, Even Steven, the name came first. For some reason, the name Steven was in my head, and I go, well, what a character named Even Steven, what would he do? Well, fairness. He believes in fighting fair, so he would always equal. That was like my thought process. I came up with the name, and then the power that would fit the name, and then I said, if he calls himself Steven, he's not going to wear spandex. There is no character that calls himself Steven. So I said he's got to be wearing clothes, and that's where all of a sudden the Mr. A thing came in, and that just was such a natural fit, because Even Steven, like Mr. A, is defined by his philosophy, not really by his power. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it's really into that in a visceral way, which is cool.
Yeah.
Like, I think of the medieval knights that believed, if you were going to get in a duel with somebody, or, fight some battle, if you were right, if you were good, God was on your side, you were going to win no matter what. And so it really does kind of fit in that heroic tradition, but I think it reinforces the visual element of him, and the story idea where he's just committed to that sort of the evenness.
Right.
It all kind of loops back on itself in a really cool way.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say he's a character that once I had to actually start to think of stories involving him, and you start to think about this philosophy and this power set, and this is what the preview pages that you're showing is all about. I mean, there's a character who has come to the conclusion that even Steven early on tracked down a serial killer, and that even Steven matched the serial killer so well that he killed the serial killer in the same way the serial killer was killing people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's some drawbacks to this power if this guy is right. If this guy is right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really it brings up so many questions. I think they're really interesting when you start to think about it, and almost like when I've heard people do improv describe it, you know, in terms of just amplifying the previous idea and going where it leads in a natural way. I think there are so many things that his setup just really lends them. Like, okay, yeah, that could this is a avenue that leads to that we could explore, and that's really fun. But yeah, I mean, that's just really such a fun looking character too. And I love, this is David HAHN's art we're looking at, right?
Yeah. David is doing such a great job. So, you know, of course, when I first envisioned Even Steven, he was very Mr. A looking, right down to the snap brim hat. And David came in and said, no, let's give him like this 60s mod, you know, cut suit and stuff like that. And it really made all the difference. It made all the difference. It made him a much more individual character, and much more interesting, quite honestly. And I will tell you, here's something I only recently realized. For the Kickstarter, I just drew 4 different drawings of Even Steven. So he can manifest. He has the ability to manifest any weapon or accessory he needs to equal the person he's up against. All right. And so I thought, I was doing sketches, and I thought, well, let's have him manifest famous weapons, you know, like, you know, a lightsaber or a phaser from Star Trek, because I thought this will help sell the sketches. And I was right. They sold really well. And where was I going to go with that? I was talking about him manifesting weapons. And I don't know where that thought was going. I'm very sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I mean, yeah, kind of like a Bloodsport, which actually I was looking through my John Byrne folder I have on my computer of all the heritage art scans I could find of his. And I think you actually inked the first appearance of Bloodsport, who does that.
That was my very first issue of Superman, was issue 4 with Bloodsport.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah, you are probably my favorite Byrne inker and Steve Rude inker, who are two of my favorites.
Wow, those are 2 high compliments then. Thank you.
Yeah, but that's one of my favorite issues of all time. I was just going through that, and I remember the cover because I think Byrne inked that himself, and it was kind of scratchy in a Neil Adams way, but very dynamic and cool looking and different. And I guess I just had assumed that he had done the interiors as well. But rereading that again today, I was like, oh no, that reminds me, I'm going to talk to Karl Kesel later.
Yeah. So, but anyways, yeah, Even Steven is, you know, a real fun character to think of stories for and to write. And we decided, you know, we had these. I've done collections of the Impossible Jones stuff, but that did not include these Even Steven backups. So now we're collecting the backups with new material, with some, you know, new pinups and stuff. We have one from Sean Von Gorman, who does The Pedestrian. And I don't know if anyone's read The Pedestrian, but it's like one of my favorite books from last year. Last year, yeah, it was last year that it came out. It's a phenomenal book, phenomenal. And so I was really glad to get him to draw a pinup for Impossible Jones. And then we have David Asia. Am I saying his name right? He drew Hawkeye for what?
Yeah, Iron Fist and
Iron Fist. Yeah. He's in the process of drawing a pinup right now.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, I love his art, and I looked at it and I said, he would do a great Even Steven. So that's what he's doing. I can hardly wait to see it.
Oh, yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I mean, it just the amount of people that are, I think, names that everyone knows, you know, everyone admires their work. You can almost just randomly pick somebody's favorite creator or top 5, and one of them would probably be in this book, which is you know, just a really great offering. How big is this book all in all? It's a collection of backups and new stuff and some other content.
Yeah, there'll be the pinups. There'll be some behind the scenes stuff. Right now, I'm penciling it in around 120 pages. But I will say, and Ben, I don't know if you've experienced this, But now that I'm not working for DC or Marvel, and I sit down and I'm writing a story for Impossible Jones or even Steven, if I go, wow, that scene, it needs an extra page to really breathe, right? And I have the very bad habit of giving it that extra page. So, so my books tend to kind of grow much more than they probably should. So I can say it's going to be 120 page, but it could end up being 124 pages. That kind of nebulous there, but at least 120.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that too. If I'll, like, oh, this needs a quiet page in between here, I'm going to add that. Or I just want this quiet page where somebody's wandering around before they find where they're supposed to go. I'm going to do that. And then I have to figure out a way to make it work for when it actually gets published. They're like, no, dude, we said 27 and we meant 27. So you're going to need to figure something out. So that does get to be a drawback. But I think that's one of the cool things about being on Kickstarter is it's just so, especially if you're, creating it and writing it yourself, sort of for yourself. You can you can take those extra moments that maybe won't appear in other versions of the book if they find another life in stores or something like that. You really can give it this kind of director's cut, so to speak, treatment where, hey, this has got those little extra things in it that are fun to do, and I think make it worth, when backers are getting this stuff, it's not the instant sort of gratification you're getting on Wednesdays when you go to the shop. It's where you can just read the thing in your car if you want. But, I think there's got to be other things that compensate for that. And doing things like that is, I think, it's one of the things I like as a creator and as a backer, just to be able to have something else that differentiates it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the things that I did in the second Impossible Jones collection, I'd done 4 floppies, although the last floppy was 80 pages long. So I'd done 4 floppies. But the second one featured one of the supporting characters from her universe named Captain Lightning, who I honestly created in 2nd grade. I created Captain Lightning in 2nd grade. And when we were thinking of Impossible Jones, I said, I can use Captain Lightning here. He will fit. But anyway.
Kind of like Savage Dragon, where he hadn't been at all those guys as a kid and they just found their way in.
I'm sure you're the same way. You've got characters that you created in 2nd grade or something, and you're thinking, they're really not what I want. They're not really for these grown-up comics or whatever you want to call it. But sometimes they are, And I was thinking of Eric Larson when I added Captain Lightning and a second character that I also created in 2nd grade named Polecat, and he was, he dresses like a cat and he has a pole, right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I remember him being really funny. The issue where I forget what they were. He was talking with Impossible Jones in the building, and I thought that is just it's a pun, but it's just there, and it just works in such a great way in a comic.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I like him. He's not. We don't want to get bogged down in Impossible Jones, but as Impossible Jones says, he's the big brother she never wanted. So he kind of tries, anyways. But the thing I was going to say is, and this is what I loved about Kickstarter, is when we did the story with Captain Lightning, there is a certain limitation, and you got to do 4-page segments. And so I had to wrap up the story a little quicker than I wanted. And it worked, but I was like, I was never happy with the ending of that issue. So when we collected it in the hardcover, I said to David, we're going to change that ending. We're going to make a good ending to that chapter. And we threw out 2 pages and put 3 new pages in. And that's what you can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and I think that's even, I think it's just a good way to offer like a good reason to get like another version of the story. I used 5 pages of my next comic I kind of put together an issue that's a lead into my next one that was kind of inspired by like Countdown to Infinite Crisis. And I'm having some pages that are reused a little bit. And I'm like, I got to figure out something extra to put in there and change them in this one because somebody probably already put those 5 pages in the last one. And I'm like, well, that's just easy to do. I'm just going to throw them in there. And it's not going to be, it's the easiest thing in the world to do on Kickstarter and to be able to offer that.
Yeah. So, and I just want to say, Ben, your comics are a lot of fun, but I am amazing. I'm blown away by your design sense. When I see like your
thanks.
posters for the, whatever you call the coming crisis or whatever it is, there's such energy to them. And like, they're this sort of, you seem to understand how to put things together that make me want to read it right away.
Well, I hope so.
I am very, very impressed with your design sense and your art too, and your storytelling. And yeah, you're really good, Ben.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm such a big fan of Shit Kid, and there's something about his work that I don't know makes me. I know he doesn't. He has done and created some comics. I think I know he wrote a Batman story. I think it's called Death by Design or something like that. But just his stuff somehow crystallizes everything I love about superheroes. Makes me just want to, whatever I'm doing, if I crack open one of those books, I'm like, all right, I want to go draw something now, or I want to, it just really hits that spot. And I always say to people, he's one of my biggest influences in just everything I want to. I want to create comics that look good with that kind of design, which is kind of a strange way I think to come at it. But that's looking at his stuff and the Alex Ross collections he's designed, and just even some of the trade press he's done for the like the Frank Miller collections that DC puts out. I'm just like, man, he's probably in a lot of ways one of my favorite comic artists without necessarily being a comic artist.
I understand what you mean. I mean, design, it's much more important than a lot of people realize, quite honestly. And I will say that is actually, one of the things I do like about Kickstarters is, I'm constantly running new images to promote the book, and I'm always trying to figure out ways to present images in very exciting, dynamic ways. Maybe not the way they actually appear in the comic, but ultra close on a face, or maybe even just, you know what I mean? Or, and then just a quick headline here or tilted or whatever. I enjoy that sort of the design aspect of Kickstarter quite a bit. And, then when I get to do the collected editions and stuff, but I would have to say one of the things I've learned through Kickstarter is I like every aspect of making a comic. I enjoy being the trafficker, dealing with David, dealing with the colorist, dealing with the letterer, the edit. In a way, I'm an editor. I'm certainly not editing my stuff. David, thank God, will go, Karl, this makes no sense. Karl, would it be better if, Karl, you forgot that this was happening? And oh, you're right. So David is my editor. But but I enjoy dealing with the printer. I enjoy getting the book ready for the printer. I actually do my own fulfillment in the basement, and I enjoy that too. I enjoy spending a week or two out of my life packaging boxes and saying, oh, Jay Furr, he's getting another issue,
Yeah.
And, you get to know these names and stuff. It's really great.
No, I did that. The last campaign I fulfilled for the first time myself. I was in there folding up my boxes and doing that. And while it did take a little longer than I thought it would, which I kind of regretted, it's just not getting out to people. I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I spend the morning in there just folding boxes and listen to a podcast. Like, that's a pretty good morning for me.
Yeah. Me too.
It's just hard to find time to do it and everything else. But I feel the same way. It's seeing whatever, like, and you really notice like the trends of like where people order things from. Like all the expensive tiers, everybody that got those were from California, almost 95%. And I thought maybe I'm in the wrong state or in the wrong side of the country. But no, it's just you really notice things and pick up patterns I think are really fascinating, and probably spend too much time thinking about them.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. I Ron Randall, who does Trekker.
Oh, yeah.
He and I are like a Kickstarter brain trust between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
He'll notice something, Karl, did you notice this? I think this is, something that's happening at Kickstarter now, or I'll hear something and I'll go, Ron, they're starting this late pledges thing. Have you heard about this? And we share information back and forth. We also share information about what's working for our campaigns, what isn't, that sort of thing. So it's always good to have someone to be able to bounce ideas off like that, who's in the trenches like I am. So he understands, like the doldrums that I'm in now, where you go all day and like 3 people pledge to your project, and one person decreases their pledge to your project at the same time. So
I'm on a creator Discord with some other indie Kickstarter people, and they're in that same thing where nothing's happening for a few days, or then of course inevitably somebody cancels or decreases their pledge.
Yeah.
And I said to them, like, I actually remember the last time I was in the campaign was doing that, just because there's a little bit of an unreality to it when you're on Kickstarter, or you're not dealing with real people face to face, or you're not at a con with a book in front of you in person. And I'm like, I had this urge to like turn something off so that the pledges can't disappear. Like, I should be able to do that in some way. And I'm like, no, this is the real world. You can't do that. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it does feel like just so frustrating somehow when you're in that state, thinking, and you like, if I just worked a little harder or thought of this thing that I hadn't thought of before, it'd be like day one again. And of course,
yeah. Well, one of my favorite quotes from LBJ, President Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from him is, he said, "If you do absolutely everything you can, you will win." That was his way he approached political campaigns. And a Kickstarter is very much like a political campaign. You're trying to win votes in a way. You're trying to find ways to appeal to different demographics and different, groups of people. And I think of that quote all the time is, if you do everything you can, you will win. And it just, obviously the corollary to that is, if you didn't win, you did not do everything you could have.
Yeah.
I
don't remember hearing that quote, and I watch a lot of documentaries about him. But that is very, that sounds like that should be on the plaque that Notre Dame players hit before they go out to play. I'll remember it now.
Yeah, no, it's a great quote. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm a big fan of Robert A. Caro, who's writing this never-ending biography of LBJ.
Oh, wow, really? I did not know that. I have The Power Broker in my shelf.
Power Broker is like one of my favorite books. One of my favorite books is The Power Broker.
Yeah. But I have a great idea for a Batman story that centers around a Robert Moses character that someday, God willing, I'll be able to do.
It would be great. Yeah. But there's, Robert Caro wrote, and he's still writing, thank God he's still alive. He's still writing, I guess, what he's hoping will be the final volume of the LBJ biography. Mm-hmm. But there's one volume, and I think it's Ascent to Power. And it's all about LBJ stealing the race for the Senate. And I mean, Caro says in the introduction, LBJ is the villain in this story. He does horrible, horrible things to win the election. And he wins the election. He steals it from, by all accounts, a really nice guy who probably would have made a really good senator. But, it's one of those things, not that we're here to talk politics, but it's one of these things where you go, I always say LBJ, he was a monster. But speaking as a Democrat, he was our monster. You know what I mean? And he got the Civil Rights Act through when no one else could have, quite honestly. So monster, it's like, what is that? Shakespeare says in Richard III, should you be tempted by the devil? Well, if the devil is tempting you to do good, LBJ is the devil who did good, really.
Yeah, I always found him so fascinating. There was I don't know if it's a book or a documentary, it's probably a documentary, where somebody was talking about how and I've met so many people like this, but I couldn't contextualize them until I heard this quote about him, where he would just get these people in a room, or sometimes even like a bathroom, and berate them, like a senator or a congressman he needed to vote for something, and just say whatever in the world he needed to say.
Yeah.
And he had no intention of ever doing it, but when people would call him on it, he was like, well, I say things to people, and then eventually they do it, and I'm not supposed to live up to that. Like, he had no conception that was something anybody would be like, wait, you said you were going to do this. And I was telling that story to my business partner, and I'm like, we've met so many of those people where they have no relationship between what they're saying in the real world at all, but they just see it as like a tool of some kind. So I've always been really fascinated with him.
And God, no one like that is president.
Well, I was going to say, without getting too much into politics and upsetting anybody, but like reading about, God, it's especially turn of the century, or, just even the first half of the century, and especially New York City politics, which I've always been really fascinated with. You always got a sense that they were a little corrupt back in the day. They were like,
really corrupt.
You just if you thought like a 3, it was like, no, it's 25. It was way up there. But yeah, I get so many good writing ideas from reading or watching stuff like that I think it's just such a good gold mine to go to.
Oh yeah, there's things in history that no one would ever believe really happened.
Yeah.
So many times I'll see something in history and go, if I had written that in a comic book, people would say, that couldn't happen.
Yeah. Or it'd be like, well, this is a little too much. I mean, half of that would be feasible, but the reality is stranger than fiction, I guess, is
much
always the thing.
Yeah. Anyways, that was a bit of a question.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love talking about that stuff, and like I said, there's so much of that. I'll be watching a documentary about the guy that made up the spire or something, and like, I've got something for that in it, and it just kind of comes out of that stuff. We did have a comment from somebody I wanted to put up, from Patrick Daniel. Just wanted to say, love your inks on George Perez's History of the DC Universe, which I definitely
thank you very much. It was a great honor to work with George and a lot of fun. I mean, I didn't have a lot of interaction with George, but during that project I did. And he is or was a gentleman's gentleman and just a great guy, And, I mean, I'll just tell a quick story about that, is that when I was inking History of DC Universe, I never got my art back. I never was getting art back. And I thought, I mean, I'd only been in the business 2 or 3 years at that point. And I said, well, maybe George has an arrangement, because George he's a big guy. He's not just, he's a legend he's one of the top guys in the field. And I thought, maybe George has a deal where he gets his artwork, all of his artwork back, no matter who inks it. And then I was like talking to him at one point, and he said something like, are you sure you don't want any of this art back? And I said, well, what do you mean, George? Don't you get all of it? And he goes, no, they've just been sending me all of it. And so and so then on the phone, we started working out like, well, I would really like this page, like I really wanted the new God's double page spread, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. And George goes, I've already promised it to someone else. He goes, but what else would you like? What else would you like? And I said, well, that Wonder Woman page is really nice. He goes, it's yours. I mean, George, who had redefined Wonder Woman at that point, was kind enough to give me the Wonder Woman page, from the history.
Wow, that's awesome.
Did
he ever give you any, I was reading an article about when he was doing Teen Titans, and he really insisted that, I think it was Romeo Tanghal was inking that, and said he really was after him to ink like at least the backgrounds of the pen instead of a brush, and just wanted to get that super technical look to it.
Interesting.
Did he ever like suggest, could you do the background in this way or anything like that?
Never said anything like that to me. I mean, I was doing backgrounds with the pen anyways, probably. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you get into that little detailed and all those straight lines for buildings, especially, but even a lot of rubble you can do with a nib really nicely. And there might have been a little more leeway on this book, because I know the art director, Richard Bruning, when I started inking it, because George had inked the first dozen or so pages, right? And then it was clear he wasn't going to be able to keep up with the deadline. And so they brought me in. But Richard said to me, he goes, you can push and pull the look of the different pages. And he very specifically said, when you get to those World War II pages or Enemy Ace or something, if you want to give it kind of a Kubert look, that would be really great. And I did try to emulate Kubert on like the Enemy Ace page and stuff like that. And George never said anything about it, and that was taking his work and really kind of pushing it a little bit. But I mean, let's face it, 90% of that book is superheroes, and George drew superheroes better than anyone. So It wasn't like there was anyone else to emulate there. So there was just a few cases where you could bring in a slightly different look,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always enjoyed his work, which is to say, if it was a story I was interested in, he was drawing it. He was somebody I would buy because I liked his art. I didn't really appreciate a lot of the things and see commonalities between things I was trying to do in his work until pretty recently. So like a bunch of nice scans of some of his originals, and really there's something about the almost focus that he gives stuff with the lighting, and almost always is just shading it straight on and doing stuff with the background that has like a lot more detail to it, that creates kind of some depth I hadn't really appreciated other times I've looked at his work. And that might be, I think also I was reading his work in like the 2000s. So it was The Brave and Bold or The Crisis on Three World stuff. It was so computerized, with all the coloring and the effects they put in there. I don't think I really loved his work until I started seeing the black and white stuff, and then some of the older stuff on newsprint that just looked different. And I think, that's kind of how that's supposed to be. Huge fan of his. Let me play a quick couple of messages here before I get a message that I've forgotten to do it.
Your comics take a lot of time and effort to create. Way too much to have them get damaged while shipping to your backers. Gemini Comic Supply mailers keep your comics safe in transit, and with the code GeekCollective10, you can get those mailers with 10% off your order. That's GeekCollective10. Enter it at checkout to get 10% off.
Click that mouse and warp into All Ages of Geek's website, your ultimate portal to everything geek culture. Here you'll find articles that speak your language, from the latest anime buzz to the coolest tech trends. Our mission? To celebrate geekdom in all its glory. Whether you're a gamer, a comic enthusiast, a 90s kid, or an anime aficionado, we've got something for you. Dive deep into them with All Ages of Geek.
Excellent.
No, thanks. Yeah,
I'm
I love
I'm going to use that discount code. I'm going to use that discount code the next time I order from Gemini. I'm going to use it.
Oh yeah, no, I saved a bundle. This is the first time. This last campaign is the first time I had, okay, I got to get those boxes and do all that stuff myself, and it added up. I mean, especially when you get up there, which you're certainly going to have that problem with as many backers as you have.
Are we at 700 yet? I know we're still
not yet.
699.
Somebody out there can be 700. Yeah.
Who will be number 700?
Yeah, it's a mystery, but that's a good way to seg into, I guess, some of the stuff that obviously we talked a lot about the creative stuff that goes into this, and where you kind of refine your ideas and what things about the story and the character you choose to focus on. But Joey usually is even more into this stuff than me as far as putting campaigns together and thinking about what works and doesn't on Kickstarter. You've been doing this for a while now. You've done a lot of campaigns with Impossible Jones, this, and all sorts of other stuff. How have you seen this campaign compare to other ones you've put out?
Well, I would say this campaign, I don't keep real precise records. Like Ron Randall keeps day by day records of how many people supported his book and how much it raised, and so he can say I'm behind 10% where I was last time, or ahead 12%. I don't keep records like that. But in general terms, this book is following almost exactly the same course my last Impossible Jones book did, which ended up just a little over 40,000. So I'm hoping that's where we'll end up here. Now, the difference, of course, is even Stephen is a higher priced book because it's a hardcover book, and the Impossible Jones was a quote unquote floppy, like a 64-page floppy. So it had a lower price point. So, and so things are slower this time. There's fewer backers. They're not they're not spending the money that they did before. I've seen this across the board in a lot of campaigns. And quite honestly, I launched this campaign because my fear was that the longer I waited, quite honestly, I'll be blunt, the worse the economic outlook would be in this country, and the fewer people would have dollars to spend on something like this.
Yeah, no, I've been wrestling with that myself, thinking do I want to wait longer? Is it dangerous to wait longer? Just because Kickstarter's been behaving a little bit differently. Not Kickstarter, the site, of course, just the environment.
Yeah.
Stuff that has done well has even been really high priced in some campaigns, but the people that want that are still doing it. But it's sort of the low end stuff is really struggling, or just not doing what it used to do, or behaving in the same way.
I agree. I agree.
A little flummoxed trying to figure that out, and it always seems like if I just think about this and concentrate on it, I'm sure I'll figure it out, which of course is impossible and stupid.
If you do everything possible, you will win.
You mentioned, and I've been trying on my list of people to talk to for this podcast. Ron Randall's been on there because I have a science fiction book I've always kind of struggled to get eyes on. And with Trekker, he's kind of created something that has gone on and just done really well. He kind of sustained this long story about a character in kind of sci-fi universe.
Yeah.
So hopefully I will reach out to him and talk to him next time he has campaign going. But yeah, I resisted the urge so far because I am a spreadsheet guy, and if I started mapping out days like that, I think I would just emerge in a month and realize I hadn't drawn anything and been sitting just changing this and that.
I have to admit, like I said, I've done some drawings for this Even Steven thing, but actually getting work done on the book is very difficult when you're running a campaign. I don't know about you, but it's all consuming to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm always thinking, oh my God, it's been 4 hours since I posted a new image, because there's always that fear, I don't see everything my friends put up, on Facebook or Blue Sky or whatever. And you just never know when an image is going to get in front of someone who hadn't seen it before. I mean, I know Ron Randall tells the story that our good friend Pete Woods, great artist, really great guy, who is very happy to support our work. There was one point where Ron had been running a tracker campaign for 3 weeks. And that was the first time Pete Woods had heard about it. And he goes, I didn't know you were doing this. Of course, here's my money. Thank you very much. And Ron is going, Pete is a friend of mine. He pays attention to what I'm doing. And it took him 3 weeks to realize I was running a Kickstarter. You just don't know when someone who wants to support you is going to see that post that you've put up,
Oh, I've heard that story so many times, and I always kind of have to remind myself, because I'm like, I think I posted this image twice. I don't want to bother anybody by, making them see it again. And then someone will leave a comment that's like, dude, this is really cool. Just something unique to it that tells me they had not seen it before. And I think, how in God's name is that possible?
Yeah.
And posting this, what I think is way too much. And I just have to say, like, Ben, no, post it again. It's fine.
I will say in the past, I would say rarely repeated an image. So I would come up with, 3 or 4 new images for every day of the campaign, basically. And it was exhausting, quite honestly. And you're always thinking, like, what else can I do? What else can I do? If I was casting the Even Steven movie, here's who I'd cast as the characters. That sort of thing is what I like start doing. This time around, there are a few kind of basic images that I think tell what the book is really well. And I've used them a few times, and I'm going to probably use them about once a week is what I'm doing. And I'll probably use them once in this next week and once in the last week. And to me, I'm thinking, well, they don't play a TV commercial just once, do they?
Yeah.
They play that commercial until you know it by heart, and so I'm kind, I do, even though the image is maybe the same, I do try to vary the text that goes with it, just to make it, if you have seen it before, here's something, a little new still. But I will tell you, every time I post reminders that Kurt Busiek, Mark Waid, Gail Simone, specifically those 3 names, when I mention that they have done stories that will be in this book, I get backers. Those posts get more likes and shares than others. It's very clear. And so I would be a fool not to mention that often,
No, absolutely. And I think that's, especially since they have pretty good social media followings as well. And they also are like in the news pretty constantly. Whether they're feuding with Rob Liefeld or writing a new book for DC. They're out there, and I think it's just really good to do that and make your collaborators a big part of that. And I've talked to people too that have kind of decried the fact that they'll pick collaborate. I'm sure you're not doing this, but like, oh, this guy doesn't have that many followers, or I expected this person to post about it more, or be a little bit more helpful to me on social media, which is a little crass to think about that way. But I think you gotta realize that is what the getting eyes on it is part of this.
Yeah. Well, the thing I always say is, people I don't. People who like the same things you like. That's why you know them, right? And they're the people that will thank you for telling them about Impossible Jones, Even Steven, whatever. Because if you're interested, your friends might be very interested. Maybe that doesn't work for, my cousin George, who's supporting me because he's my cousin. But if someone is supporting, Even Steven because they like what I did on Superboy, well, they probably have friends who like Superboy, and they might like Even Steven too. And I try to remind people, people I don't. I can't reach those people. You can reach those people.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think it's one of the things that makes it frustrating and fascinating in doing this stuff is it's kind of a new way of getting books out there. It's really only picked up in the last 5-6 years in a big way. And at the same time, it's always changing a little bit. So stuff that worked, like when I did my first book on Kickstarter in 2021, people were telling me, you've got to just run Facebook ads. That is like a 10-to-1, you'll get your money back investment. And then not too long after that, I want to say within a year, people are like, oh yeah, that's just nothing happens with that. You're throwing your money away. And then I've heard that kind of cycle back and forth, and it just kind of points to how quickly this stuff changes. And
it changes constantly. I know. And maybe that's just the world we live in, constant change. You know? And constant quick change. I mean, things have always changed, but it seems like the pace has accelerated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was talking to a friend earlier today who works for a kind of sports TV production thing, and was just taking us through some of the changes in what his department was doing in particular for their live broadcasts and stuff. And I thought, when my wife and I were driving home, I thought, man, that is just so much to absorb and to figure out what to do about it, let alone just learning some of the new stuff. I think that's just, most of my friends are artists of some kind, and my wife's an animator and a professor. We have friends who do TV stuff, do movies, things like that. And the amount of times I'm hearing, oh, I've got to go back to the drawing board and relearn this software because they've changed everything about it. Everybody seems to be going through that in every, at least artistic field, in unimaginable ways. And I guess I started an illustration studio when I got out of school over 20 years ago. And I was hearing stories from illustrators who both embraced doing, Photoshop and other drawing programs, and ones that kind of didn't want to get into it, and learned a lot from that. But I just think of that level of change being disrupted then is like just nothing compared to what's going on now in terms of just how you create artwork. And then you add the Kickstarter thing, and you're going to be marketing your stuff too. You're going to be sending out to people. It's just all of that on acid. I mean, everything is turning upside down every day.
Every day. Yeah. Yeah. No, I always say, Ron Randall and I say, the Kickstarter is like the Wild West. There's no rules, and the rules you have today change tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And what works yesterday didn't work. And what won't work tomorrow, but I think your campaigns have been, your book is, the books you're doing, and obviously they kind of live in the same universe, do have a similar vibe to them. And I've kind of found that whenever I've gotten away, I kind of did Scarlet Twilight thinking this was going to be a little more niche, much smaller audience than my other book. And I found that to completely be different, or, switch around. The more niche it was, I think the better it did. And that has, I think, continued to be true. Have you kind of looked at doing other books that are like you've been working with HAHN for a long time on these books, and there's definitely an identity that your books have. Do you think that's been like a really strong, because you've done really well on every campaign you've done, it looks like, do you kind of attribute that to the consistency of the book, just how it looks and the atmosphere of it?
I guess. Yeah, I guess. I do think the consistency of the books, I would like, I hope so. I don't know how to answer that. We just try to do the best books we can. I certainly try to do books that I would want to read, and I would want to look at and maybe reread many times. So, and I will, we'll see, I do in the near future would like to do something of my own. Okay. Mm-hmm. Only because I'm not getting younger, Ben. I'm not getting any younger. And sometimes I worry that my days are more numbered than I want them to be. So I've got some ideas that I would really like to do on my own that I would like write and pencil and ink myself, which I've done very little in my career. Very little. Partly because I'm a really slow penciler. But that itch is getting very strong, very strong.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. We got Even Steven here, and we got some more Impossible Jones, but maybe I can squeeze something in.
Yeah, I just hit that age where I'm like, kind of looked at all the ideas I had I wanted to do someday, and I'm like thinking about how long it takes me to draw something and how much faster I hope I'll get. And I'm like, yeah, even if you get a little faster, this kind of takes you to the end. So get cracking on that. That was a depressing moment. That was not one of my favorite birthday realizations.
Yeah, I know. So, well, you're I would say considerably younger than me. Yes, I'm 66. Believe it or not.
Okay, I'm about to turn 46. So yeah.
46.
Yeah.
So 20 years younger. You got plenty of time. Plenty of time. Plenty of time.
That thought is not going to make me draw any faster. Like, find that extra hour to finish a page, but I will take it. So just because I know you got to get out of here pretty soon.
Very soon.
You did hit that 700th backer. Awesome.
Oh my God! When did that happen? So exciting. That's
might
great.
have been Michael DeFonte. I'm not sure.
I hope, Michael, if it was you, thank you. 700.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I'll just say real quickly, you know, this is one of the things I find with Kickstarter is you have to be ready to roll with the moment. And like I was looking earlier today, like I told you, we're getting close to 700. And if I was not on this interview with you, I would have been posting when we were at 699, who will be the 700th backer. And I was already thinking, it's Sunday, the 700 Club. How can I play off of all of this? You know, I mean, really, that's how my mind works. How can I create a hook that is going to get people to support the book? You know what I mean? But I didn't have to do any of that. Maybe, yes, he says, Michael says he's number 700.
Yep.
Thank you, Michael.
Exciting.
Yes, I'm very excited. So,
very cool.
That's a great way to end. That's a great way to end the show.
Yeah, I think it is. Let me run through a few books here real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Share with friends of ours. Remember Me Part 3, the intense jaw-dropping finale from our friend Patrick Foreman. This is a fun book, very crime, kind of a true detective style story is what I always say. And actually, we'll have a new cover soon because that's what I'm going to have to do when I get done with the show. Get some sketches over to them. But definitely, this one's a pre-launch. If you enjoyed the other two chapters, definitely get on this list. Jump over to our friend Corey de LaGuardia and his ongoing book, Department of Meta-Human Affairs. This is also a really fun superhero kind of take-off book where you're looking at different angles of some of the repercussions superheroes would get into. So if that is your type of thing, if you're into 80s X-Men, any of like Suicide Squad, Damage Control, and you're watching this, definitely check that out. The last book I'm going to go through to is my book, which is still in pre-launch until I can finish up about 3 more pages. We're going to go back to Scarlet Twilight. This book is essentially a love letter to Crisis on Infinite Earths or Secret Wars, but done as if it had been done in the 1940s. So you're going to get all those big 2 event type stuff happening, unexpected character deaths, people meeting you never thought you'd get to see together and fighting, universe shattering stuff, but done in the style of the Golden Age of comics. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to kick it off. So if that is your jam and you're watching this, head over to that pre-launch page, which you can go right down and see in the description, and get on that pre-launch list, and we should be launching soon.
I'm going to get on that page. I'm going to get on that page for sure.
Appreciate it. And then, of course, I mentioned the links are right down below. So if you are a fan of Karl Kesel's work, and frankly, who isn't, I guarantee you almost anybody watching this, if they look over at their bookshelf, has got several books that you've done. So that makes this a pretty easy call. But if you're watching this, head over to that link and back even Steven for 10 more days.
Yes.
I think that'll do it. Karl, it was such an awesome, it's great to be able to talk to you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me, Ben. We really need to talk more. I really enjoyed
Absolutely. Yeah, no, likewise. It's been, obviously, I say this every week, but I certainly mean it this week. I hope everybody watching, whether you're watching this now live or if you're going to watch this in the shorts or later in the week, I hope you've enjoyed talking to Karl as much as I have. This is such a cool looking book. Karl, you've got so many great insights into the creative process, into the Kickstarter process, that I think there's just been so much cool stuff to talk about here. So thank you again for coming on.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Ben. I had a great time.
All right. Well, everybody, we'll see you next week. We'll be back to talk with more indie comics creators about some more cool comics.